When my stepmother burned all my belongings, I made sure she lost everything she ever cared about. The smoke is still hanging over the backyard when I stumble through the gate, and for a second my brain refuses to name what I'm seeing because naming it makes it real. My suitcase is on its side in the grass like it got shoved there. A corner of my old quilt is caught on a bush, blackened and curling. In the fire pit, there's a mound of ash with shapes I recognize. Metal zipper teeth, the warped outline of a picture frame, the melted spine of a notebook, and I hear this crackling hiss like the last pieces are still dying. Denise stands by the patio with her arms folded, barefoot, calm, like she's watching something ordinary. When she sees me, she doesn't flinch. She doesn't look guilty. She tilts her head and says, "Oh, good, you're home," like I'm late for dinner. I can taste smoke, bitter and oily, and my hand starts shaking so hard my keys rattle. "What did you do?" I say, but it comes out too quiet, like my throat can't push sound through it. I step closer, and the heat from the pit hits my face. It's not even a big fire, not anymore. It's the aftermath that's big. I drop to my knees in the grass without deciding to, because my body thinks if I get closer I can reverse time with my hands. I grab at something half-burned, and it disintegrates between my fingers, leaving gray dust on my skin. "Denise," I say again, louder now, and my voice cracks. "What did you do?" She sighs like I'm being dramatic and flicks her gaze down at the pit. "I cleaned," she says. "You left junk everywhere. It was a hazard, and frankly, it smelled like mothballs." Then she adds, almost sweetly, "You can't keep living in the past, Ava." It was a Tuesday morning 3 weeks earlier when I got the call that my dad had died, and I remember exactly what was on my screen at work because the email subject line was something stupid and normal, Q2 forecast revision, and I'd been annoyed about it before my phone buzzed. My aunt's name came up, and my first thought was that my dad had forgotten another password and sent her to ask me. Then her voice was wrong. Thin, trembling. "Ava," she said, and I could hear herself try not to cry. "Sweetheart, you need to sit down." My dad was 57. He'd been healthy enough to mow his lawn in the heat. He complained about his knees like every man his age. He'd posted a photo of his barbecue on Sunday. And then, aneurysm, sudden, no warning, gone in a blink. I drove to the house on autopilot that day, hands clenched on the wheel, so tight my knuckles hurt. The house I grew up in felt like a museum the moment I walked in. Everything was too clean, too staged. Denise had always liked the appearance of order more than the reality of it. She'd been my stepmother since I was 15, after my mom died and my dad married again, with the kind of speed that made everyone pretend they weren't shocked. Denise had been a fresh start, according to my dad. She wore light perfumes and spoke softly in public, and gave people the impression she was gentle. In private, she was sharp. Every compliment had a hook in it. Every help came with a price. She tolerated me in the house the way you tolerate a stain you can't get out of a shirt you still want to wear. At the hospital, she cried loud enough that nurses kept coming in to check on her. She clung to my dad's ring like it might bring him back. She kept saying he was my whole life, like the fact that he was also my whole childhood wasn't relevant. When the doctor finally told us there was nothing to do, Denise looked at me with wet eyes and said, "I don't know what you're going to do now. Not I'm sorry. Not we'll get through this." Just that. Like my existence was suddenly a logistical issue. I didn't want to stay in the house, but my lease was up and my apartment was a half-packed mess. My aunt offered me her spare room, but Denise insisted that I come back to my dad's house for the arrangements, to be together, to sort his things. She said it in front of everyone, hand pressed dramatically to her chest, so declining would have made me look cold. I agree because grief makes you easy to maneuver, and because there were things in that house I needed. Not furniture, not money. My mom's things. When my mom died, I was 13. The year after, I packed a box in my bedroom with everything that felt like her. Photos, her jewelry box, the letters she'd written me in school lunch bags, the quilt she made from old t-shirts, a little cassette tape of her voice telling a story when I was 5. My dad couldn't handle looking at it, so he let me keep it. When Denise moved in, she asked me once why I kept sad memorabilia, and I told her, bluntly, it wasn't her business. After that, she stopped asking and started doing the thing she does. Moving objects slightly, tidying my space, making it clear she could touch whatever she wanted because she ran the house. The week after Dad died, I stayed in my childhood bedroom. Denise turned the guest room into her planning office with binders and color-coded folders. She was efficient, I'll give her that. She planned the funeral like an event. She made sure the flowers looked expensive. She picked hymns my dad never listened to. She accepted casseroles from neighbors with a trembling smile and a stiff back. In public, she was the grieving widow. In private, she watched me like she was waiting for me to slip so she could justify pushing me out. 2 days before the funeral, I asked her where my mom's box was. I knew it wasn't in my closet anymore because I'd checked 3 times, like it might reappear out of guilt. Denise didn't look up from her laptop. "What box?" she said. "My mom's things," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "The photos, the jewelry, the quilt. I want it before." I stopped because saying "before you erase me" felt too raw. Denise clicked her mouse slowly. "Your father and I were doing a clean-out months ago," she said. "We put a lot of old clutter in storage." "Where?" I asked. She finally looked up, eyes cool. "I don't know off the top of my head," she said. "And now is not the time for you to be rummaging around in grief boxes. We have a funeral to host." "Stepmother." "It's my mother," I said. "And he was my husband," she replied, like that settled hierarchy. Then she softened her face into something almost pitying. "Ava, sweetheart, you need to focus on moving forward." Something in me clenched. I didn't argue then. I didn't have the energy. I waited until she went to bed, and I searched the house like a burglar, opening cupboards and closets, pulling out old storage bins, checking the garage. I found Christmas decorations, Dad's old golf clubs, Denise's outgrown shoes. No box. The day of the funeral was a blur of handshakes and stares. People told me I was so strong, which is one of those phrases that feels like a demand, not a compliment. Denise stood up and read a poem about devotion. I stood there and felt like I was watching someone else's life. When it was over and the crowd thinned, I went back to the house with Denise and my aunt and a couple of relatives to eat leftover food and pretend we weren't shattered. That night, after everyone left, Denise poured herself a glass of wine and said, "Okay," like we were switching from performance to business. "We need to discuss logistics. The house, the accounts, the timeline for you moving out." I blinked. "Moving out?" I repeated. Denise sat on the couch like a queen claiming a throne. "This is my home," she said. "I can't grieve properly with you here. And frankly, Ava, you're an adult. You have a job. You'll be fine." I felt my face go hot. "My dad wanted me here," I said automatically, even though I didn't know if it was true. It just felt like it should be true. Denise's eyes narrowed. "Your father wanted peace," she said, "and you were always a disruption. I should have left then. I should have packed a bag and gone to my aunt's and saved myself this whole nightmare. Instead, I stayed one more week because I was stubborn and grieving and because I still thought I could retrieve my mom's things without a war. The morning I came back from running errands, the morning of the smoke, Denise had waited until I was gone. I'd been to the pharmacy, the post office, and I'd picked up a folder of death certificate copies because Denise said she needed them for paperwork. When I pulled into the driveway, the air looked wrong. Hazy. Gray. My first stupid thought was that the neighbor was grilling. Then I saw the fire pit. Back in the backyard, on my knees, staring into the ash, I feel like I'm floating outside my body. Denise keeps talking, but her voice sounds far away. "I'm not doing this with you," she says. "You can't turn my life into a shrine to your dead mother." My dead mother. I repeat, and it comes out like a laugh, sharp and broken. I grab a warped metal thing and realize it's the clasp from her jewelry box. My vision goes fuzzy. "That's all I had," I say, and I hate how small it sounds. Denise's mouth tightens. "You had a father," she says, and there's something ugly under it, like resentment she's been keeping polished for years. "And now he's gone, so you can go build your own life somewhere else." I stand up too fast and nearly sway. My hands are covered in ash. "Where is the storage?" I demand, because a part of me still can't accept that everything is gone. I need to know if she burned the original or if she burned copies. If she burned some decoy box. If there's any chance I can salvage something. Denise looks at me with a flat stare. There is no storage, she says. My blood goes cold. You lied, I whisper. Denise shrugs. I did what needed doing, she says. You were never going to leave while you had your little anchors. I don't know what my face looks like, but something shifts in her posture, like she realizes she went too far, and she's trying to gauge whether I'll scream, cry, or call someone. She lifts her chin. You're not going to make me the villain, she says quickly. You left flammable trash in my house. I disposed of it responsibly, in a backyard fire pit. I walk inside without another word. I go straight to my room, and my suitcase is already on the floor, half open like she'd rummaged through it. My drawers are pulled out. My closet is empty. She didn't just burn the box. She burned everything I owned that was still in that house. Old clothes, notebooks, the photo albums I kept under the bed, the stuffed bear with my mom's perfume still faint in the fabric. It's like she wanted to erase any claim I had to that place, any proof I'd ever been loved there. My phone feels heavy in my hand. My first instinct is to call my aunt. Then I picture my aunt's face, rage, tears, helplessness, and I realize calling her won't undo anything. It will just start a war where Denise will cry and claim she was threatened and attacked in her own home. So instead of calling, I start recording. I take slow videos of the empty room, the suitcase tossed, the ash on my hands, the smoke outside. I film the fire pit from multiple angles, zooming in on recognizable items. The jewelry clasp, the melted photo frame, the scorched corner of the quilt. I don't narrate dramatically. I just capture it, steady like evidence. Then I go to the kitchen and open Denise's laptop. I know. It's invasive. It's probably illegal in some contexts. But grief makes you bold in ugly ways. And I had one clear thought. She wouldn't burn my things without planning something bigger. Denise doesn't act without a strategy. Her laptop is still open because she'd been working. I don't dig through everything. I go straight to her email search bar and type storage. Nothing. I type my dad's name. I find a chain with a subject line that makes my stomach flip. Estate documents. Updated copy. It's from a lawyer. There's an attachment. I don't open it yet. My hands are shaking too much. I photograph the screen with my phone. I scroll. I see another email. Trust transfer confirmation. Another. Beneficiary update processed. My skin goes cold. My dad had a small life insurance policy. He also had a retirement account. And he'd promised me, more than once, that my mom's inheritance, what little there was for you one day. Denise had always smiled when he said things like that, but her eyes would flick to me like I was a threat. I closed the laptop without opening attachments. I don't want to do something I can't explain later. I take photos of the subject lines, dates, and sender addresses. Then I pack what little I have left. My work laptop, 2 outfits, toiletries, while smoke still drifts past the window like a ghost. Before I leave, I walk back into the backyard. Denise is inside now, probably making calls, probably already preparing her version of events. I kneel by the pit one more time and pick through ash until my fingers hit something solid. A small plastic rectangle, scorched at the edges. I wipe it gently, and my throat closes when I see it. The cassette tape. My mom's voice. Half melted, probably destroyed, but it's there. I hold it like it's a live wire. I drive to my aunt's with ash on my jeans and my hands smelling like burnt paper. When my aunt opens the door and sees me, she doesn't ask questions. She pulls me inside and says, "What happened?" I hand her the cassette. Her face crumbles. That night, we don't sleep. We sit at her kitchen table while I show her the videos. She keeps whispering, "Oh my God," like she can't fit it in her brain. Then I show her the photos of the emails. Her face changes from grief to something harder. "Your dad would never cut you out," she says, voice low. I don't know what he did, I admit, but I know Denise did something. My aunt calls a family friend who's an attorney. Not a dramatic one, a practical one. She listens, asks questions, tells me to write down everything while it's fresh, dates, times, what Denise said exactly. She tells me to go to the police about the burning because it's destruction of property at minimum, possibly arson-related if it put the house at risk. She tells me to request a copy of my dad's, from the lawyer directly, not through Denise. The next morning, while Denise is probably telling people I had a breakdown, I do two things. I file a report and I file requests. At the police station, my hands stop shaking because anger is a kind of focus. I show them the videos. I show them the ash-covered items. I show them my suitcase tossed out. I don't exaggerate. I don't add adjectives. I stick to facts. The officer's face tightens when I mention that some items belonged to my deceased mother and were irreplaceable. He asks if Denise admitted to burning them. I tell him what she said. She called it disposing responsibly, I say. The officer's mouth presses into a line like he's heard that kind of phrasing from people who think they can wordsmith their way out of consequences. Then I go to the bank with my aunt because if Denise was already moving money, time mattered. We bring death certificates, my ID, and the contact info for the attorney. We ask the bank to flag any unusual transfers from accounts that my dad and Denise held jointly, and to provide records where permitted. There are limits, but the manager is kind and blunt. If there's a dispute, you need legal representation immediately, she says. And if there's any indication of coercion or fraud, you need to document it. That afternoon, I call the lawyer whose email I photographed and ask for an appointment. The receptionist's voice tightens when I say my name. Denise already called. She says, careful. Of course she did. 2 days later, I'm sitting in a conference room with a lawyer who looks tired in the way people look when they know a family is about to implode. He slides a copy of my dad's will across the table. My stomach flips before I even read it. Denise is the primary beneficiary of almost everything. The house, the accounts, the retirement. There's a clause that gives me a small amount. A token, enough to make it look like I wasn't forgotten. Not enough to reflect what my dad had promised me in quiet moments. I feel like I'm going to vomit. He wouldn't. I whisper, and I hate how weak it sounds. The lawyer watches me carefully. This was updated 6 months ago, he says. It was executed properly. Witnessed. Was he alone? I ask. The lawyer hesitates just long enough to matter. Denise was present, he admits. She scheduled the appointment. My aunt leans forward. Was there any prior will? She asks. The lawyer exhales and slides another document forward. An earlier version, from years ago, after my mom died. In that version, my dad left Denise the house if she survived him. Yes, but he also left me a significant portion of his retirement and explicitly preserved my mom's personal property for me. The lawyer's voice goes softer. Your father changed it, he says, but I'm going to be honest. Contested estates often hinge on circumstances. Undue influence can be argued in certain situations. Undue influence. The phrase lands like a key turning. That night, I don't cry. I clean ash out from under my nails. I wash my clothes 3 times, and they still smell faintly like smoke. I sit with my laptop, and I make a timeline. I print photos. I screenshot emails. I compile witness names. I write down every time Denise made comments about moving forward and clutter and anchors. I find old texts from my dad where he said, "Your mom's things are always yours." I find voicemails from him, tiny scraps of his voice that Denise can't burn, and I save them to 3 different places. I also find something else because Denise can't help herself. In one email chain, there's a line about accelerating the beneficiary update before the procedure. Procedure. I scroll further back. I find a calendar invite. Mark, specialist consult. 6 months ago, my dad had been seeing someone. Quietly. Something serious enough that Denise was rushing legal updates. I call my aunt and ask, did Dad have health issues? My aunt's voice goes tight. He had scans, she admits. He didn't want to worry you. Denise said it was nothing. Something cold settles in me. Because if my dad was scared, if he was sick, if he was vulnerable, Denise had a window. And Denise doesn't waste windows. Here's the part people always want to make simple. I didn't ruin Denise's life with one dramatic stunt. I didn't slash tires or do anything movie-like. I did something slower. Something Denise couldn't cry her way out of. I let consequences find her. The police followed up. They interviewed Denise. She tried a calm voice. She said I was unstable. She said I'd left hazardous clutter, and she was protecting the home. Then the officer asked why my suitcase was tossed outside and why she'd emptied my room the day I left. Denise stumbled. She contradicted herself. She got annoyed and snapped, which is always her downfall, because she can't maintain sweetness when she's challenged. The bank flagged unusual transfers around the time of my dad's will update. The attorney filed for an injunction to pause certain asset movements pending review because there was enough smoke, literal and metaphorical, to justify caution. Denise called me screaming for the first time in my life. Real screaming, not controlled. "You did this," she yelled. "You're trying to steal from me." I held the phone away from my ear and said, "Calm, I'm trying to stop you from stealing from him." She went quiet for half a second, then hissed, "You always hated me." I almost laughed. "You burned my mother's things," I said. "This isn't about hate. This is about what you did." The next blow came from a place Denise worships, her image. Denise is deeply involved in a community charity group, fundraisers, church events, photos with oversized checks. She cares about being seen as generous. A police report and an estate dispute alone wouldn't necessarily pierce that, because communities love excuses. But Denise made a mistake. She tried to control the narrative too aggressively. She posted a vague Facebook status about being attacked by ungrateful people in a time of grief. People commented hearts. Then someone, one of my cousins who'd seen me show up at my aunt's covered in ash, commented, "Maybe don't burn other people's belongings." Denise deleted it. The cousin reposted. Screenshots started moving. Family group chats exploded. People asked questions Denise couldn't answer without lying. I didn't post anything. I didn't need to. I simply sent the most relevant video, the one with the fire pit and the recognizable items, to 3 people who mattered in Denise's social orbit: her best friend, the charity coordinator, and the pastor's wife. I didn't add insults. I wrote one line: "I'm not asking you to take sides. I'm asking you to understand why I can't stay silent." Denise lost control of the story within a day. People started asking her directly, politely at first, "Did you really burn Ava's things?" Denise tried to spin it. It was an accident. Then someone asked, "Why was her suitcase outside?" Denise's answers changed depending on the audience, and inconsistency is a stain you can't scrub out once people start paying attention. The estate dispute escalated. My attorney filed for discovery around the will change and the circumstances of my dad's health. Medical records were requested with proper legal process. Denise fought it. The fight itself made her look worse. My aunt's attorney was relentless in a quiet way. Every time Denise said, "Ava is emotional," the attorney responded with paperwork. Every time Denise said, "I did what Mark wanted," the attorney asked, "Where is that documented?" Then the specialist's records came back. My dad had been diagnosed with an aggressive condition months before the will update. He'd been undergoing treatments. He'd been scared. There were notes in his file about anxiety, about confusion after medication changes. There was also a note from a nurse, small, easily missed, about Denise insisting on being present for discussions and answering questions for him. Undue influence isn't easy to prove, but patterns matter. And Denise had left fingerprints all over everything because she'd assumed nobody would challenge her. Meanwhile, the criminal side, about my belongings, didn't vanish. Family Matters doesn't magically erase property destruction. The police didn't arrest her dramatically in front of a crowd, but she was charged with something real enough to show up on background checks. Denise works in a role that requires trust and community standing. Her employer put her on leave pending investigation, which is corporate language for "we don't want this attached to us." Denise called me again, voice trembling now, not with grief, but with panic. "Call them off?" she whispered. "Please. I'll give you money." She swallowed. "I'll apologize." I stared at my wall while she begged, and I felt something strange. Not satisfaction exactly. Relief. Like the world was finally responding appropriately to what she'd done. "You can't unburn my mother," I said quietly. "You can't unburn my life." "I didn't mean," she started. "You meant to hurt me." I interrupted, and my voice didn't shake. "You meant to erase me." She sobbed. "You're ruining me," she whispered. "No," I said. "I'm telling the truth. You built your life on being untouchable. Turns out you're not. By the time the first hearing came around, Denise looked different. Not softer, just less confident. Her hair was still styled, her clothes still crisp, but the sheen had cracked. She avoided looking at me in the hallway, like eye contact would make her vulnerable. When she did look, her eyes held hatred so pure, almost made me laugh, because for once she wasn't hiding it behind charm. In the end, Denise didn't lose everything overnight. It happened in pieces, which is how real consequences usually happen. The court invalidated the most recent will update based on the evidence of undue influence and the circumstances of my dad's health, restoring the earlier version. That didn't make me rich. It didn't fix my grief. It did something more important. It proved Denise couldn't rewrite reality just because she wanted to. My mom's personal items, what could be proven existed, became part of the estate distribution. Denise had to account for their destruction as part of the proceedings, and that mattered. There was a formal acknowledgement that what she did wasn't cleaning. It was harm. Denise sold the house eventually. Not because she had to immediately, but because she couldn't stand living in a place where people no longer treated her like the grieving saint. She hated the neighbors' polite coolness. She hated the way the charity group stopped inviting her to be in photos. She hated that the pastor's wife stopped hugging her. She cared about image more than comfort, and once the image cracked, the house was just walls. As for me, I moved into a small apartment and filled it with new things that didn't smell like smoke. I framed one surviving photo of my mom that I'd had stored digitally. Just a print, not the original, but it's her face. I found a company that could restore audio from partially damaged tapes, and I paid too much money for it because it wasn't about cost. They recovered 31 seconds of my mom's voice. Not the whole story, just a laugh and a line where she says my name. I listened to it in my car and sobbed so hard I had to pull over. Sometimes I think about Denise and feel a flash of something I don't like in myself. This hard, dark satisfaction that she finally felt powerless. Then I remember kneeling in ash, my hands full of what used to be my mother, and the satisfaction turns into something else, a quiet certainty that I didn't do anything wrong by refusing to be erased. Denise burned the only things I couldn't replace because she thought it would make me disappear. She thought without my anchors, I'd float away and stop being a problem in her story. Instead, I gathered what was left, videos, emails, dates, signatures, and I made sure the world saw her clearly. She lost what she actually cared about: control, reputation, the comfort of being believed without question. And I didn't have to set another fire to do it.